He began. Not really, I admitted. Well, there are lots of legends, some of them claiming to date back to the flood. Supposedly, the ancient Quileutes tied their canoes to the top of the tallest trees on the mountains to survive like Noah in the ark. He smiled to show me how little stock he put in the histories. Another legend claims that we descended from wolves, and that the wolves are our brothers still. It's against tribal law to kill them. Then there are the stories of the cold ones. His voice dropped a little lower. The cold ones? I asked, not faking my intrigue now. Yes, there are stories of the cold ones as old as the wolf legends, and some much more recent. According to legend, my own great grandfather knew some of them. He was the one who made the treaty that kept them off our lands. He rolled his eyes. Your great grandfather? I encouraged. He was a tribal elder, like my father. You see, the cold ones are the natural enemies of the wolves. Well, not the wolf, really, but the wolves that turn into men, like our ancestors. You would call them werewolves. Werewolves have enemies? Only one. I stared at him earnestly, hoping to disguise my impatience as admiration. So you see, Jacob continued, the cold ones are traditionally our enemies. But this pack that came to our territory during our great grandfather's time was different. They didn't hunt the others of the way their kind did. They weren't supposed to be dangerous to this tribe, so my great grandfather made a truce with them. If they were promised to stay off our lands, we wouldn't expose them to the pale faces. He winked at me. If they weren't dangerous, then why? I tried to understand, struggling to not show him how seriously I was considering his ghost story. There's always a risk for humans to be around the cold ones, even if they're civilized like this clan was. You never know when they're too hungry to resist. He deliberately worked a thick edge of menace into his tone. What do you mean civilized? They claimed that they didn't eat humans. They supposedly were somehow able to prey on animals instead. I tried to keep my voice casual. So how does it fit in with the Cullens? Are they like the cold guns your grandfather met? No, he paused dramatically. They are the same ones. He must have thought the expression on my face was fear inspired by his story. He smiled, pleased, and continued. There are more of them now, a female and a new male. But the rest are the same. In my great grandfather's time, they already knew the leader, Carlisle. He'd been here and gone before your people had even arrived. He was fighting a smile. And what are they? I finally asked. What are the cold ones? He smiled darkly. Blood drinkers, he replied in a chilling voice. Your people call them vampires. I stared out at the rough surf after he answered, not sure what my face was exposing. You have goosebumps, he laughed delightedly. You're a good storyteller, I complimented him, still staring into the waves. Pretty crazy stuff, though, isn't it? No wonder my dad doesn't want us to talk about it anymore. I couldn't control my expression enough to look at him yet. Don't worry, I won't give you away. I guess I just violated the treaty, he laughed. I'll take it to my grave, I promised, and then I shivered. Seriously, though, don't say anything to Charlie. He was pretty mad at my dad when he heard some of us weren't going to the hospital since Dr. Cullen started working there. I won't. Of course not. So, do you think we're a bunch of superstitious natives or what? He asked in a playful tone, but the hint of worry. I still hadn't looked away from the ocean. I turned to smile at him normally as I could. No, I think you're good. I think you're very good at telling scary stories, though. I still have goosebumps, see? I held up my arm. Cool, he smiled. And then the sound of the beach rocks clattering against each other warned us that someone was approaching. Our heads snapped up at the same time to see Mike and Jessica about 50 yards away walking towards us. There you are, Bella, Mike called in relief, waving his arm over his head. Is that your boyfriend? Jacob asked, alerted by the jealous edge in Mike's voice. I was surprised it was so obvious. No, definitely not, I whispered. I was tremendously grateful to Jacob and eager to make him as happy as possible. I winked at him, carefully turning away from Mike to do so. He smiled, elated by my net flirting. So when I get my license, he began, you should come see me in Forks. We can hang out sometimes. I felt guilty as I said this, knowing I had used him. But I really did like Jacob. He was someone I could easily be friends with. Mike had reached us now, with Jessica still a few paces back. I could see his eyes appraising Jacob and looking satisfied at his obvious youth. Where have you been? He asked, though the answer was right in front of him. Jacob was just telling me some local stories, I volunteered. It was really interesting. I smiled at Jacob warmly, and he grinned back. Well, Mike paused, carefully reassessing the situation as they watched our camaraderie. We're packing up. It looks like it's going to rain soon. We all looked at the glowering sky. It certainly did look like rain. Okay, I jumped up. I'm coming. It was nice to see you again, Jacob said, and I could tell he was taunting Mike just a bit. It really was. Next time Charlie comes down to see Billy, I'll come too, I promised. His grin stretched across his face. That will be cool. And thanks, I added earnestly. I pulled up my hood as we tramped across the rocks toward the parking lot. A few drops were beginning to fall, making black spots on the stones where they landed. When we got to the Suburban, the others were already loading everything back in. I crawled into the back seat by Angela and Tyler, announcing that I'd already had my turn in the shotgun position. Angela just stared out the window at the escalating storm, and Lauren twisted around the middle seat to occupy Tyler's attention, so I could simply lay my head on the seat and close my eyes and try very hard not to think.